Okay, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased that you showed up after lunch and after all these sessions today. We'll be talking about an interesting topic which we discussed last year at AU Middle East. This was actually the work of my colleague Muhammad Adel, who really did a fantastic job with some of our customers in the Middle East. Yes, it's talking about the drawing production, but it has more benefits than just drawing production automation, as you will see in the upcoming slide. Okay? Is my voice okay, or shall I raise it a little bit more? Fine? So the agenda for today's session will start by an introduction about my colleague, myself, what is the session about. Then we'll talk about the major challenge that we are facing in our project, and what is a simple solution that we can implement in our project, which is basically the code set style. How many of you, by the way, know about the code set style in 3D? Okay, almost like 40%.
Can I add a question? How many use it?
Just two, okay. Thank you. Drawing production process, how we're supposed to have it, and additional or bonus material, something that my colleague also did a great job on, how to do a trick on how to add pressure details for the pressure network. And then the customization, how do we work with code set styles? How do we make a user-based database? We collect information and we can reflect on the benefits and the efficiencies that we derive from this process. And finally, summary and conclusion. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Me in the first. Okay.
Yes.
So, I'm Muhammad Ahmed. I'm an Autodesk BIM implementation consultant. I'm based in Dubai. I have over 10 years of experience in infrastructure. I support the region mostly in the EMEA region here, and specifically in the Middle East. I think that's it. That's enough. I've worked, I think, with a couple of you guys over the past couple of years.
Thank you, Muhammad. Okay, about myself, I am a technical specialist, also in the Dubai office, covering the Middle East region. I met many of you guys. Focusing also on infrastructure solutions, so Civil 3D, InfraWorks, vehicle tracking, etc. I don't go in detail like my colleague does with customers. I know the basics, I know the major features. So for the
he knows everything. It just
okay. My background is bachelor degree in civil engineering from the American University in Beirut. I am a PMP certified professional. I worked in Doha in this region for 6 years in construction industry before moving into Autodesk and software. I have other, interests like supply chain management, masters in neurolinguistic programming, and early this year, I became a certified hypnotist. I'm not gonna hypnotize you, don't worry, at all. Okay, you will stay all awake. But this is some of my interests in life. Overall, as I mentioned, 12 years of experience, 6 in the construction industry and 6 years with Autodesk. Okay, class description. So we all know that we have the BIM tools, very powerful tools, whether from Autodesk or other vendors or sources. But there is always kind of like a disconnection between the model or the model authoring process and somehow the drawing production. And I see it a lot in this region. I think you as well. We go to these big design firms and even contracting firms. They have BIM models, they have BIM departments, but they have many people working in AutoCAD, adding labels, adding dimensions, doing manual things that really take a lot of time and effort, and also result in many errors. So we need to automate that in some way. Many people are not really unlocking and benefiting from the major powers of Civil 3D as we all know about it. We know about it, but we don't implement it, unfortunately. What this workflow will show you is one case study that my colleague Muhammad worked on with one of the mega design firms in the Middle East, and they were able to reduce the time required to produce the sheets, whether that's in cross-sections, plans, and profiles, by more than 80%. 80% reduction in time, and definitely driving better results and more accuracy. So the challenge is basically the BIM model is not sometimes used to generate the sheet. So if we create anything in BIM, we make a modification, we have to go back into the same manual process of extracting the sheet. Time-consuming, effort, and resources are allocated for this. So it's a manual process. The other thing is the quality, because with people, we do make errors. It's not like we change like the profile and the alignment or the corridor, and all the cross sections will update automatically. Some guy has to go there, check all the details that have changed, and add those details or update them as we go. So we want to bridge the gap between the BIM model and the sheets that are extracted from the BIM model, and this is the disconnection we have right now in most of our projects. The other thing that we face a lot, and this is with all the customers I visited in the Middle East, except I would say without naming, some governmental entities where people are very laid back, but that's another story. So always whenever I meet customers in the AEC from design firms or contracting, they always tell me we have submission deadline, we have problems connecting different disciplines, different teams, and mostly this is the statement I hear, it's always a fast track project, right? We always hear that. So time saving is a very important process in the project. Now for sheets in Civil 3D or in our infrastructure projects, we have three major ones. We have the plans, we have the profiles, and definitely we have the cross-section. And all these three types of sheets, we can automate them inside of Civil 3D. Not just by using the available tools, but also by customizing the code set style, which we'll see in a second. Okay. Other challenges is Autodesk Civil Performance. We hear it a lot. If you have a big model with huge terrain, with a very long corridor, some people say that Civil 3D performance is not as they expect. How many of you face the problem with Civil 3D when you have big projects? Honestly speaking. So we have like 50-60%. Okay. So one of the things that we can do with code set styles is optimize performance, and we'll see that later. Okay. So this is another benefit rather than just automating the drawing production. Model breakdown and management. We have different graphic standards. We have local standards. I know here for UAE, for Saudi, etc. And we need to adhere to that. And we have different skills. These are all some of the challenges that we go. So one of the solutions that my colleague worked on is code set style. For those of you who work in Civil 3D, it's very simple. If you go to the Prospector tab, right, actually to the settings over here, you have the code set styles, and this is where you can control the code set style for most objects inside Civil 3D. Specifically, when we talk about corridors, and we'll check later cross-sections, feature lines, etc. So why are these important, or what does the code set style control? They control the appearance of corridors and the objects inside my model space in Civil 3D. So it's visually entertaining for us as engineers. It's also controlling the labels of cross-sections and assemblies. We'll see later the dimensions, etc. And also the quantity takeoff from corridors. How many of you, for example, extract solids from Civil 3D for quantification, or send it to Navisworks for clash detection, or even 4D, 5D simulation? That's usually the process we go through, right? So this is also automating the process in the back end. So it has multiple benefits as well. So
can I add a question? Who here calculate the length of the curb as an example automatically from the corridor? Who here knows about something called bay items? So the available standards are not fulfilling your current regional standards. No, I'm talking about the corridor specifically. Okay. Okay.
So ease of use, speed up the quantity takeoffs, and definitely improve the Civil 3D performance. We'll talk about how we're going to improve the performance with code set styles. Now, it's worth mentioning that for code set styles, you can create multiple codes. So if you are a designer, you create one code. If you are in the draftsman department, you have another code for production, etc., etc. And this can be local specific. So you're working for a project in Dubai, in Beirut, in Cairo, in Saudi. So you can create all these separately, and you can leverage them in each of your projects. Some of you will say, I know about it, I don't know how to use it. How can I learn about it? We have a very useful learning platform from Autodesk called Autodesk Design Academy. It's a free platform where you can find courses for infrastructures, for buildings, etc. Unfortunately, for infrastructure, we have only one. But there are certain short videos which you can benefit from, and this is one of which you can learn about very quickly how code set styles work and some of the benefits of this. So if I run the video, for example, you will see that it shows you exactly how you can set those, how this will change the items, the codes, the visualization, etc., etc. So very quick introduction to the code set styles for those of you who don't know. Also, what I would like to share with you, you can take a screenshot, you can take a picture, or I can send it to you by email. So another learning resource, and as Engineer Ramzi mentioned in the previous presentation from DAR, there are many recorded sessions available online from Autodesk University, especially the one from Las Vegas, and these are some of the best I've found on the topic. Okay? So recorded sessions, you have recorded webinars, we have YouTube channels, and definitely Autodesk Knowledge Network. This is where you will see troubleshooting of issues. If you're facing some problems with Civil 3D, you can find an article on how to solve things quickly and easily. It's open platform for everyone, to contribute and share, etc. So let's go into the deep things. So the process of drawing production. Most of the time, we have a design model, and this is our single source of truth. It has certain elements in it. As a designer, maybe I need to show or generate certain stuff in it, maybe all of the feature lines, sample lines, etc. And then once we move into production, maybe the guy who's working in the production needs to have certain objects shown and generated, but others not. So it's a different requirement between the two individuals or two personas. This is why we need to have three different maybe templates, and these templates will have in them the code set style of that particular persona or that particular project. So it's very important to create these and save them in our library for later use. Some of the other benefits that we can leverage inside Civil 3D, other than the code set style, this is very quickly, corridor data shortcut. And this is also available in the Prospector tab in Civil 3D. So you can link different things together. It performs enhanced performance, but still you are able to collaborate between different teams or different individuals. The reference templates, which allow you to apply. If you're working on a project and you have a template that's created by your company or that as per the client requirements, if something changes in that template, the project will update as per that template. So that's also available. Save batch utility was introduced, I guess, 2-3 years ago. It's available with the AC collection. It's a free benefit of the subscription. It allows you to save older models of Civil 3D to the latest ones. It also optimizes the size of the file, so it's lighter, it works better on your machine. And it can also modify many of the things like how do you want to name the file, you want to add a certain name, project, etc., etc. So it's really an automation tool that's very handy when we are upgrading our models or creating different DWGs. And finally, corridor dynamic solids. Also, you can now extract solids that are dynamic from the model. If the model changes, the solids will change accordingly. Hence, updating the sheets that you have showing those solids. So moving into code set style. So why do we need to work with code set style? The visual appearance. Some of you might think that this is not possible in Civil 3D, right? If we have a 30-kilometer, 40-kilometer road and we have this type of visualization, maybe you will tell me my machine cannot handle it. But reality is, and we tested it and Muhammad can confirm, having something like this is way lighter inside Civil 3D than having the full corridor model with all of its points, control points, and links and shapes. But it's visually entertaining and it's easier to relate to the item. The same thing with displaying the sheet. How do we create the labels? How do we create these slopes, dimensions, etc. So it's all automated, and we'll see it in the video. Classifications, paylist, which you mentioned, and definitely huge impact on the performance because we are reducing the elements that Civil 3D will generate and we don't need, and the elements that Civil 3D will show to us in the model space. This is just a quick video that Muhammad did. I just made it shorter and sped it up a little bit. So you can see from there, you have the simple corridor. We go to the code set style. We can access the code set style from there, and we are able to change the different materials or objects that are shown in my model space. So we have the points, we have the links, we have the points, and we have the shapes, right? This is the sub-assembly or the assembly that was used. You can see that all the items there are available. So by default, Civil 3D, once you work with the sub-assembly or corridor, you create corridor, you will have all of these links generated. And it's very heavy on the Civil 3D side. Most of the time, you don't need all of these details. So you're making your life, sorry to say, terrible, and we're sorry about this from Autodesk. It should be the other way. Start with minimal and then you add. but unfortunately this is the case. So you have to go through this process of optimizing the code set size. So this is just showing you some of the items. You might be, for example, not interested in daylight cut, daylight fill, or other items. You can just hide them, etc., etc., and maybe even put their style to no display. So here we have the style of the element, the labels that are assigned to it. We can just change it from basic to no display. Okay, so what we're doing here, just select them all in Civil, go to no display, assign it. And by the way, for each and every item that we see in the corridor, right, we have the, as I mentioned, section, plan, and profile. So maybe I need to show this item in the section, but not in the plan, not in the profile. This is very powerful because here I can set those requirements. Okay, so turn this invisible, we hide them all, and then we hit apply and OK. We can definitely save this code set style to a different name. This was saved under, for example, AU. We're putting no shading, and then once we click back into the model space, you will see that once we assign that code set style, it's regenerating the corridor. It's a very, very light model. I know you're going to tell me I need more details, but this is a very good starting point. We start from nothing, and then as a designer, I want to see certain object, I add it, and then I save it. If the draftsman wants to see additional object, I add it and save it. This is way lighter than the previous model. Okay, the other video will show here that we can basically change also, I think, the feature line. So what we've already changed in the previous video was the corridor itself. Yes, plan production code set. So we're naming a new one. That one maybe for design. This is for production. So we select the sub-assembly here. And in the codes, yeah. So you see all the codes listed. I think I'm saying the same video. Yeah, same video. This one. So in the codes for the corridor, here we have two major areas. We have the connect and we have the display, right? So two major things. Connect is asking Civil 3D that whenever I generating a corridor or updating a corridor, rebuilding it, please recalculate this link, this point, elevation, etc., and do all of this calculation in the back. This one is telling Civil 3D whether I want to see it or not see it in my model space. So we have two different elements inside the code set side. Okay. For the feature line. So since I'm saying these, so we have one. This is the generation, and this is where I guess if you have a very powerful machine with a very high-speed processor, you will be okay if you turn most of them on. But if, for example, you turn off 4, in this case we had 16, I remember. If you turned off 4 out of 16, so you saved the performance of Civil 3D by 25%, let's say.
Really, it's a simple math, yeah, right? So this is the 100% of your build of the corridor, of the size of the corridor. Choosing what you need and switching off what you don't need really save you this fraction of the size. So in here, this is 25% save for switching off the bottom of the curve, right? If you don't need any data on the bottom of the curve, if it's not part of one of your services, just discard it. You don't need to use it. The problem always comes that people use sub-assemblies or use the default values, and they end up with having a very detailed corridor, which can provide them with more than what they need. Okay, so the simple trick: start with nothing, and whenever you find something that you need, connect it, display it, open it, add label to it, but start with nothing. Don't start with everything and come back later and say, it's not handling the performance, I guess. We have a 300-kilometer road. It's very complex. No, start easy, and you can go as much as you can.
So by default, unfortunately, this is all ticked on by Civil 3D, unless you go and change it. And the other thing is not the generation, the display, right? And I think this is mostly related somehow to the graphics card. This is more for the processor. This is more for the graphics card. Okay. So if you have a very low-end graphics card, it's recommended to show only the things that you really care about.
One question on that. I guess we have a lot of civil engineers, correct? Do you guys get the best graphic cards in the company? Right? it's, you feel like it's more of the architect who gets the big guys, the guys who do renders, correct? Don't overuse your graphic cards. You don't need it. Basically, what Muhammad is saying is that you are asking your graphic card to show something which you don't need. By default, Civil 3D will show you 4 or 5 points and lines representing the different layers of the road, which you don't need to use. You don't need to see. Sometimes you don't need even to generate in sections. Okay, so don't overuse it. That's it.
Okay, so the end result might be something like this. We can add more lines, definitely. We can show other stuff. Now, some engineers who are designers, they will say, well, okay, that's fine, that's nice. Maybe I don't need all the links, all the feature lines, but I need to know where are these lines located. And one of the tricks to do that is basically what we call assembly insertion point. So the beauty of this feature is that from the also prospector tab, if you go to the corridor, right click, you get into the corridor style. So here you can set that you want to show, for example, the region boundaries and the location where those lines are created. So correct me if I'm wrong. So if you have like a corridor with multiple surfaces, or let's say multiple layers, let's say we have this cross section, this cross section, and they are connected together, my finger here to my finger here. Instead of drawing this link and drawing the second link and the third link and the fourth link, which are all over each other, Solid 3D will draw just one. So you're also optimizing the performance of Solid 3D. Still showing them where they need be. Okay. There's another trick of how to save on performance. What about showing more visual details? This is where we go into the code set style and then we assign a render material. So my style could be something like this. I can show different materials. This could be standard for the company, standard for the client or the project. And this is easier to visualize the project and share it with the stakeholders. Different material, different, and this is highly rendered, as you can see. Definitely you can turn off the level of detail in Civil, so if you zoom out, zoom in, things will look differently and also save on resources, but this is what you get, and this is still way lighter and better performance than having all of the things stick together. Okay, so this is more about the plans, but what I find most of our customers struggling is with cross sections. You might have 1 kilometer road, you have cross section every 20 meters. So how do we optimize the creation of cross sections and their labels? Same story. So we have a code set style, which we can have it custom made for a certain customer and project for the cross section. So by default, what you get from Solid 3D is either the other one, which is very simple and basic, or you apply a certain style and you get the top, maybe bottom surface. But usually what's a challenge is getting the points that are at the top of the asphalt, top of curb, and measuring the dimensions between them, because these have to go to the contractor so that they will be able to construct the model properly. So you can add definitely some labels here and there, but it's mostly manual process. And you need to know exactly where the point is for you exactly to snap into it or kind of reflect on that exact same elevation. Manual, tedious, error prone, etc., etc. So we want to automate that process of creating labels for the cross section, right? So what we do here is how do we move from that process into something automated like this? How do we can get the labels, the slope, and the dimensions automatically? It's again using code set style. So let me just move a little bit to this one. Thank you. So we have this cross section which is created from the original tools at in Civil 3D. We're just assigning the right cross code set style. And did you notice what happened in just a second? So we moved from something that's exactly like this, nothing in there. With one single click, I'm just applying the code set style. Everything appeared, from labels, from dimensions, colors, hatches, etc. So, and if the model changes, all what I need to do is just rebuild the model or refresh, and everything will update automatically. So it's not a matter of days for the draftsman now to create all the sections of the project, the hundreds of sections, and make errors in the process. No, it's just a single click, and there you go. Okay, what I think we're adding here is, okay. I want to show the part which is, yeah. So these labels are parametric or let's say dynamic. So they are linked to the object from the assembly, right? So if this object changes in width, changes in parameters or anything, these labels can change also as well. This is, for example, just a static object, but we can actually add some dynamic aspect to it. So you can come, for example, to the profile or the certain area here. And for example, I want to show in my labels for the contractor or for maybe estimation purposes, I want to add the area or the height or the elevation of this interlock. This can be done using normal functionality in Civil 3D, just optimizing the label, and there you go. It's reflecting the area in meter square or whatever. So also the custom-made objects or objects based on quantities can be also optimized in the labels that we are creating. Okay, I think covered this. What about dimensions? Same story. So how do we get to this automated dimension thing for our cross sections? I have here a long video. I'm just going to show you how we do it. If we create a cross section from Civil 3D normal cross section, usually what people do, they usually turn off everything or they turn on few things and then they experiment with it. It's very manual, right? What we want to move to is the automated process. Actually, bear with me. We covered this. Okay. So if we change something in the corridor, in the assembly, let's say, if we change, for example, the side, the length or the width of the interlock, how would that update our model? So here, for example, we have the carriageway width 45, the lane, etc. So let's focus on these numbers. And the top one, I guess, 58.4. So for some reason, the designer changes something in the model. How would that update? Right? What Muhammad did was a very cool trick, because we need to get sometimes not standard dimensions. So I want to exactly show from a certain point to another point, and Thursday is not able to take it. What he did was, by using the sub-assembly object, take a mark point, place it where he wants to start the drainage, the measurement, another point, connect it with a link. This is not supposed to be shown, the points or the links, we can hide them, but we will use them in the dynamic labels. So here, automatically, we can show, I think it's over here. Yeah, so this is the point that we've added with a link to the other point, and then automatically we can generate the required dimension. So this is the link, LM1, for example, marker point 1. We set the default for these, and then we have all the parameters in here, right? So this, for example, like this carriageway, it's connecting from a certain point that we specified to the other point. If these points change, we change the sub-assembly, this carriageway dimension will change for all the hundreds of cross-sections that we have throughout. Edit code set style. We might create more than one code set style because we have this one and this one. So this one, for example, is created at an offset of 10 meters. This is at 20 meters. This is why Muhammad mentioned here it's like code set style up 1, up 2. Just some tips and clicks how to do that. And then just to save on your time, back to this thing that we have 58 and 45. If we change the dimension, if we go to the interlocking part, the sidewalk, and in the sub-assembly we change it from 2 meters, let's say, to 5 to 6 to 7, just to show how things will update. So this is a change to 5 or whatever. I think, yeah. So you can see it here, it's 5 meters instead of 2. If we go to the cross section, okay, you see that the area has updated. So the label has updated, and the top dimension has also updated as well. Unfortunately, I have it very close here. I cannot. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but it changed from 58 meters to 61 meters. So the dimensions update, the quantities update, and the 3D representation or 2D representation of the cross section update. There is no need for a lot of time to create those cross sections anymore. These are some of the claims that draftsmen say, no, I need to create this manually, Civil 3D cannot do it. There are always ways, tips and tricks how to do this. So we end up from this to this in a matter of one single click, based on a certain design change. Again, connecting the design to the sheet automatically. What about special cross section. Sometimes the draftsmen or the people who are working on generating the sheets, they will tell you, I have very special case. Yes, they might still use AutoCAD or some of the AutoCAD functionality, but all of these items can be modified separately as one instance, right? It doesn't have to be like you have to create them for all instances. You can, for example, this label, maybe it's overlapping with something underneath like a structure or a pipe. You want to lift it, shift it here or lift it up or rotate it. This is all possible in Civil 3D. And it's automated. And you can save this for use later on. So now we've turned some of these labels up. We kept the bottom one horizontal, etc., etc. Just some minor tweaks in the automation process. Other benefits: the same code set style that we use to produce those sheets automatically, we can also use it for the extraction of solids. So we can set, for example, based on the items in the corridor, what sort of material we'd like to assign to it, and other details as well. So whenever we are doing the extraction of the corridor, we have the same result each and every time, depending on the project or the customer requirement. So we have it visualized, we can quantify them, we can move them into what we call Navisworks if you need to do that. Yes, please. Yeah, normal, you have to have at least 0.00, I think, 1. Yes. Yes. From my knowledge,
What do you mean rendered? You need to assign a material and see it.
if it's zero slope specifically. Zero slope, yeah. You have to have it 0.000 something, then 1 it will work. As far as I know, this is what should work, but 0 will not work. Yeah, you have to put 0.0001, whatever, the smallest possible fraction you can put there. As far as I know, no, unless there is a workaround. Okay. But we can
Just accept the 1 millimeter difference.
exactly.
We work with roads, we work with soil. So there is always this something I faced a lot while I'm speaking. Sometimes you find that in the BIM execution plans, people does not define what's the acceptable precision. Which, as an example, if I talk to Ram as well, he presented the structure things. There is a different precision for a structure than in roads, right? Do we, road engineers, urban, all of this, do we speak in millimeters? We don't speak this language, correct? We speak in meters, correct? So this is basically, even when you put the slope on the profile, do you put the slope 0.5, 2, 3, 7, 8, 6? No. To the millimeter level. I will tell you about some workarounds after this, so that to get this done. But I was just more concerned about the concept because we get the same question regarding the surfaces in Civil 3D that we cannot create a vertical surface. So in general, the whole discussion about the precision acceptable. Imagine this: your survey data is being collected from the surface every 25 meters. And I'm concerned about a 1 millimeter. Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. There is always workarounds. Sure. Go ahead.
Yes.
Usually for edges, you mean, so the edges of the road. Usually what most of the industry do, unfortunately, they use to have a CAD plan and they follow it. What we ask people to start using is basically the offset alignment within Civil 3D. Exactly, you can use any of those, and if you wanted, frankly speaking, wallahi, frankly speaking, the main problem is that people find that Civil 3D crash because they use the default things, the code sets. What?
But it's
No,
different.
it's basically exactly. Contractor might need different things. Consultant might need things. If I'm a reviewer, I'm only concerned about just checking the widths and all of the elements. So it's a different perspective. And unfortunately, in the Middle East, we don't have what we call a country kit. In different regions, we do have. Exactly. There is a couple of internal initiatives to create a country kit for the Middle East, but still it's not there. So, but what Mohammed is trying to tell you that you have the tools. You just need to spend the time. Everyone here, I'm sure, took the time to create our CAD standard, our Revit standard, our whatever standard we did. Using or dismissing the code sets impact Mohammed spotted on performance, which is, I think, everyone pain. Drawing production, most of the people I know do have a full room of draftsmen who are ready to send the model, to start the sheets, to update, and when there is anything, and road engineers tend to change a lot, correct? Right? So it's always better to spend the time ahead preparing your template exactly as it is. And by the way, if you did it once, I think most of the clients would be very similar with some minor updates. We don't invent new points in roads. It's just lane and the sidewalk, the usual suspect, nothing crazy. Yeah. Yes, he's. Yes, he's. Yes. Yes. Exactly. That's not the question he was asking about the zero. So it's a matter of even if you have it as a very vertical, you cannot generate some elements out of it.
So another benefit is the extraction of solids also can be customized based on the code set size. These are the ones we are extracting from Civil 3D. Can definitely change the colors, the render material. You already know that with Civil 3D, since I think 2018, if I'm not mistaken, we introduced our 2017 property sets. So these can also bear more information. So we're adding more information to the BIM model. And all of these 3D solids can be sent to Navisworks, as you will see in a second. Here we can do the 4D, 5D simulation. It's very easy to link certain 3D object to a task from our schedule, whether it's coming from Primavera or Microsoft Office project. And also we have all the attributes, all the property sets coming through from Civil 3D. So it's serving multiple purposes, not just one. Additional, as a bonus to what we discussed about code set styles, some people face problems with the drawing production of pressure networks inside of Civil 3D. So until the 2020, before 2020 release, we were able to do all this except the pressure network data. And the 2020 release, we introduced some more intelligence to what information we can get from the pressure network and introduce in our network profile. What Muhammad did here is basically an amazing workaround for the pressure networks in Civil 3D. So after you create the pressure network, without delaying further, sometimes when you create the profiles, and these people know, here in the band, you will find that some items, like for example, pipe pressure or pipe diameter is missing. You cannot find it in the Civil 3D list. So if you want to populate this information, you can. What he did was he created empty bands, named them in a certain way as per the information he would like to show, and just created some smart labels. And these labels, because they are attached to the dynamic object, so whenever the object updates, the label of that object updates with it automatically. Yeah.
Muhammad, zoom in. I think we have the invert. Invert can be shown also, no problem.
Okay, let me show the other one, maybe this one.
So the one before the last is basically the pipe invert level, and you can choose to show the start invert and the end invert. I would, the word smart, which is Muhammad describing, is basically because it is located not at the pipe, but basically within the placeholders of the bands. Okay, that's it. But this is the simplest style. That's a simple label style, just to save you time of someone measuring, adding, or having an AutoCAD script to create some profiles. All of this is basically playing with the label styles, playing with the styles, and knowing before you start that I'm going to need this and have it in your template. That's it.
And this is dynamic as well. So if the pipe updates, the label will update.
What do you mean merging? Merging pipe network. So till now we don't have a functionality to merge pressure pipe networks. That's what you are asking about. No. But this is not the topic of that. But we don't have a merging between pressure pipe networks till now.
Hopefully, it will come later. So,
yeah.
Yeah. I cannot tell you details, but there is something that we are working on, and it's coming hopefully in the new year, specifically for pressurized pipe.
Let's put it like this: there is a lot of focus right now on pressure pipes.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Yeah,
exactly. And the other thing is, how do we measure the difference between the old workflow versus the new workflow? Because again, BIM is about a process. It's not about the tools. The tools are here to help us make the process more efficient. Muhammad worked with many of our customers, major design firms, and he collected data, inputted the data into Excel, and then extracted the reports. And the data that was extracted was, various. So from the generation time, how much time does it take to create those sheets, the number of sheets extracted per project, whether it's generated by an engineer, there is the high cost for it, a drafter.
Don't skip this. This is the biggest one.
Update time. Exactly.
So generation might be acceptable, but update is horrible, right? Again, how many times a road engineer change his design? Okay, so the key is I accept to spend some time to generate, but to re-update every click, that's a nightmare.
And what is the benefit of such data if we don't create some formulas to check what is the severity or what's the impact of improving this workflow versus the old one, right? I'm just running because we're running out of time. Then populating all this data into an Excel sheet, see how much time do we spend on combined sections, on setting out drawings, profiles, and road cross sections, so that we know exactly what we want to focus on as BIM engineers or maybe BIM managers. And finally, checking on the results. And this is actually from a real case study with one of our customers. They were able to save over 80% of the drawing production time, okay, on real projects. And this is all by implementing things like code set styles and the other tools we talked about as well. So this is it, basically. Just make sure that you're leveraging the tool. Civil3D is very powerful, but we need to do some customization here and there, some tips and tricks, and you will be able to benefit from it and stop having this fear from Civil3D. Yes? Yes.
Yeah, for data shortcuts on roads, okay?
Yeah.
If a new revision coming on the road profiles and alignments, if we go to the manage data shortcut, we apply that one, it will automatically, update all the labels wherever the revision happened. We don't need to start the procedure from the beginning. But for the pipe gravity networks, once the revision happens, we apply data shortcuts. What happens? Complete labels and whatever the profiles we created disappears. I need to begin my complete labeling, my profiles for the pipe network from the zero.
Okay, that's weird.
So if I understand correctly, basically what you're saying is that pipe network data shortcut, if you update the source of the drawing, it results in loading all of the label styles. It shouldn't be the case. So it depends. Where are you up there? So basically, once you have an object within Civil 3D, this object has what we call a handle. So a unique ID, right? A unique ID. Every element in AutoCAD or Civil 3D or even in Revit, it has a unique ID. And this ID is what governs all of the labels assigned to it. So as long as you keep the same element, updating its diameter is not considered as deleting it and adding a new one. Once you delete the element and add new element, in that case, you need to reassign the labels. Just to try the tricks that you're going to find in the presentation, you will find basically we should speak. We should speak, definitely we should speak. But the usual case is that as long as you're updating the pipe, not deleting it, and reassigning a data shortcut, you missed the drawing or you relocated the drawing differently, shouldn't impact your label. It's the same. It's basically reading the source from other drawing. If the source in the new drawing you reassign is different, that's a different story. If it's the same network but it's updated, the case should be that the pipe will be updated, the label will reflect, and everything goes smoothly.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll give you my business card. You can send me an email with the case number or when you posted this with some screenshots. I will raise it up. I will follow up.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk afterwards, and I need more information from you. I'll follow up on this. But again, as I mentioned, next year we're having hopefully updates. Don't quote me on this. I'm not supposed to say this. Usually we're not allowed. But something is being worked on at Autodesk, and we have focused, as Muhammad mentioned, on pressure networks. So expect something hopefully in the new year. Yeah. Yes, there are webinars. We usually have webinars. So if you check.
If you are a follower of the future of what we are doing, so basically there's what we call a beta program, which you can get access to what the product team is doing, what we are developing in testing mode, which is the betas, and you get to test it yourself. And the good thing, provide feedback, communicate with the product team, provide your insights, what should be there, what shouldn't be there, your pain points. All of this is available for anyone to register and get access to.
You might try it, but it's not a confirmation from Autodesk. Whatever you see in the futures portal, that it will be in the product. That's why I don't promote it. We've had the previous cases in the past. So yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. No problem. By the way, yes, for Civil 3D, right? Yeah. Okay. Usually with Civil 3D, we have the corridor problem, most of the things that I see, and the surface problem. These are the heaviest two objects we see, and this is where things make problems for Civil and it crashes. But if you implement the right workflows and the right tips and clicks like code set styles, you will have a much better experience. Yeah. It has to be optimized. It has to be optimized. If you, yeah, okay, that's a bold claim, but we need to talk about it's a different story. BIM 360 is a different story.
Put it like this: I did a 200 kilometers highway within mountains on an Acer, if I recall correctly, 3 gigabytes of RAM. Is that enough? By applying the codes that I need only, not everything which ships by default within 7, not the default. I choose that I need the center line, the edge of the road, the edge of the curb, the daylight points. That's it. Using the default what Civil provides, each lane you will find in it, I think there are over than 12 or 13 codes. All of them are running. All of them you are asking Civil to connect feature lines out of them, and all of them are displayed, overlapped, and all of this you don't need. So again, Muhammad knows I work on a small surface. So no. Sure.
No problem. Just before we leave, we have a very great session by my colleague Salvatore. He's coming from Italy. He's an expert with drainage and civil infrastructure. He's delivering a presentation also tomorrow as well. I'll be talking tomorrow about Dynamo for Civil 3D. Civil 3D now, or Dynamo can now access the API of Civil 3D. We can access it through the custom nodes that are available, and we can also access it through Python as well. So things are changing in our industry finally for civil infrastructure. So please attend these sessions, and thank you very much again for staying all this time. Thank you.